We've traveled to 14 different countries, and each one reminds us that travel is the only thing that makes you richer. My name is Darius.
And I'm Carmen. So we all have our thing, right? It might be shoes or clothes or food. But for us, travel is the thing that we spend our money on.
So Darius, myself, and our 3-year-old daughter are all going to Nigeria in 5 days. We are going to our best friend's wedding, and I am just starting to pack. So I say 5 days, it's really 7 days. Today is Sunday, we leave the following Sunday. So what I tend to do like the week before is I like to start getting clothes and things together so that I'm not just packing frivolously and have no plan come Saturday night. So I just wanted to show you what packing in the Britt household looks like.
Monday. Yep.
Tuesday.
There we go. We're getting organized, huh?
Saturday. Sunday.
So what we want to share with you today is what we learned about financial freedom while being in Port Harcourt, Nigeria.
Ladies and gentlemen, once again, your captain. You may have noticed a heavy thunderstorm that is passing across the field at the moment with lots of rain and wind.
We visited Port Harcourt, Nigeria for a wedding, our best friend's wedding. And in that time frame, we got a unique perspective about culture, money, and most importantly, food.
So, food. Now, how we want to organize our thoughts in this video is through 3 different pillars. And this is what we talk about in the Wealth Nation channel anyway. So the first one is mindset. The second pillar is debt. And the third pillar is cash flow. So starting with mindset, I have to say that I learned this once I got home as I started reflecting back on the trip. And that is that poverty is a mindset. Poverty isn't a way of life. And that really just kind of came to me as I was reflecting on this trip, because one, from the American lens, right, can look at the country of Nigeria and think that it's a poor country.
Or because it's a third world country, we already assume that it's poor.
Yeah, exactly. And it wasn't until we started really peeling back the onion and getting more immersed in the culture and meeting more people where we recognized that really poverty is just something that I feel like we kind of make up in the American culture, because what I found was the people on the surface who look poor were the happiest people I've ever met, right? Because they had everything that they could ever want. And I think what happens is once you start to live in a world where consuming is very prevalent in your culture, you feel like this immense amount of void. Like I have to keep consuming in order to make me feel better or to have that temporary feel of gratification. But for those who don't need anything else, they're not looking at the next.
They're satisfied.
Yeah, they're completely satisfied with everything that they had. And what I really saw was looking at everyone who was around me, and there's different classes, right, that we were exposed to. But the idea was like, we don't need anything in order to be happy and in order to have love. And I find that a lot of the Americans that I know are more miserable than the people that I met in Nigeria, and they have way more money than some of the people that I met in Nigeria.
Yeah, one point that you made is the fact that whenever you consume, you have to continue to consume so that you feel that happiness it's only a temporary feel that you get.
Exactly.
Now, when you get something you're satisfied, you don't really need anything else because you have everything that you need. It's a matter of being satisfied.
Totally.
So what our culture is in the United States is to constantly consume, which means we'll never be satisfied. So when it comes to true happiness, or the idea that poverty is a mindset, we really seen that on through the experience, not just with Nigeria, but with other countries we've been to, like going to the Dominican Republic. And when you go off the beaten path from the resorts and you actually see the countries for what it is, and you start to meet the people in the cities, you realize that they may have more than what we actually have.
You want to be as happy as they are.
Right. And that's what you want at the end of the day.
Is happiness and love. And the other part to this is not only the consumption, but also thinking about how everyone is willing to share. Right? I can't tell you how many people were offering us stuff. Again, on the surface, it looks like they have nothing, but they had so much to give. Right? And so sometimes we tend to have this scarcity mindset of like, no, I'm going to hold everything. I need to hold everything. I can't share anything because this is all I got. Whereas we recognize just the power of giving. And again, going back to the mindset where it's like, as long as you're content with recognizing you have everything that you need, everything else is a bonus and you get to share in that. And that goes back to the mindset of abundance as opposed to thinking about, poverty again on the surface and what that could mean.
Right. And that's a good foundation to get you on to the next piece of financial freedom, which is actually having money so that you can do the things and be the person and do the things that you want to do. So that gets us to our next point about debt. So when you think of poverty or somebody that doesn't have, you think someone that has a lot of debt, at least from the perspective of our American lens.
Yeah.
Because of the consumer debt that a lot of us rack up. When you have consumer debt, you owe somebody more money than you actually have, which makes you a debtor.
Yeah.
In Nigeria, what we recognize is that everything that moved, people owned it. Every car that moved is owned by somebody. Every house that was built that people lived in, it was actually owned by them. They didn't have mortgages. They didn't have car notes. They paid money and they actually owned the stuff that they had. And even a step further is they didn't have to pay any taxes on the stuff that they already owned.
Go figure. We had this conversation, with some family members that we had met, and he was schooling us on this, right? It was like, yeah, all these cars that you see, people buy these outright. And we're like, what do you mean? Like, how do they have the capital to do it, right? Because from our lens, we're thinking, no, you get a car loan and you make payments on it. Isn't that what you guys do here? And it was just transforming to see that and then get on the road and go, I'd be darned. Everybody owns these cars, right? And then going into the communities and everyone owns their houses. And again, that was just another light bulb that went off in our heads where it was like, who is poorer?
Why do you Americans have so much debt?
Because we're a debt society, and it was going back to and we can talk about governments. This isn't the topic of governments, right? Where we're just talking again from just our perspective of being there for 10 days and comparing the traditional American lifestyle to what we've seen in this specific city that we were visiting. And so it really challenged, what Darius and I continue to think about is riches and wealth and what does that mean? And seeing that so many people in this particular city own cars, own their houses outright. It just really shifted our thoughts and thinking about poverty, abundance, and this thing about poor and being and in different classes, and so to speak, I would say.
Now, one thing it did give me some perspective on is the importance of us paying taxes and where our funds go in having our paved roads, street lights, stop lights. That I really appreciate that perspective of not just kind of really appreciating the experience that we get to have here through, even though it may cost us a little more to have it.
Have the infrastructure.
In place.
Again, this is not a topic about taxes because we can debate that to the death, but that's
a whole new video.
Yeah, the picture is just the what we see, like, oh, okay, that's kind of what taxes gives you when you have some money allocated to infrastructure, for example. Now, the next topic that we want to talk about is cash flow, and what we were able to see is many Nigerian American families who live in the United States go back to Nigeria and stay for periods of time, and they pour back into the local economy. And that was really enlightening to see because Darius and I were joking, like, we don't even want to pour into our own hometowns, but like these people literally leave the United States and go back to the country so that they can, employ staff, so that they can, again, contribute to the local economy. And that was really, really like a mindset shift again. We see this in so many cultures. And as we continue to see it, just that mindset continues to cement of just the feeling of empowerment, knowing like I'm going back to my country because I'm going to serve. And seeing that again, going back to the abundance mindset was just really, really powerful for us to be able to now like create a foundation for what that looks like for us and how we can give back to our community, because we don't really, we don't do that really much at all. And we need to figure out what that foundation looks like and how it makes sense to us so that we can continue to give as much as we can.
From our perspective, what makes it easier is the global arbitrage that Americans get from having American dollars and spending it in Nigeria. It goes a lot further, which means they're able to help more people through the power of having a dollar.
Yeah.
Whereas if I go back to Sumter, South Carolina, the dollar that I have here in DC is the same dollar that's going to be in Sumter, South Carolina. So it's kind of, I understand how they're able to do that. It's very important that they do that. But it's a really good perspective, and I can see the heart in what they're doing and what they're trying to accomplish for their local village.
Yeah, and talking about money, for example, so Darius and I went with American dollars, and we had 20s. We had nothing but 20s in our bag, and we were hoping to exchange the 20s once we got there. And what we learned very quickly was that they do not accept 20s. They roll their eyes at like 50s. What they want is $100 bills with the big faces, not the small faces, because those are easier to counterfeit, but they want the value of a $100 bill. So luckily our friends who we went with had enough $100 bills where we could change our money with them so that we could actually have money when we went, because they were like, don't get the money out of the ATM because you're not going to get the right rate. You have to get the rate from the other market, so to speak.
Right.
And those numbers, you want to talk to those numbers, what the exchange rate was?
So there's two different exchange rates. There's exchange rates for the Americans who don't know any better, and then there's exchange rates for the local. If you know somebody that can go and exchange your money for you that you trust, you can get the local value. So the exchange rate for, like us who didn't know any better, would be 750 Naira.
For $1 US dollar.
For $1 US dollar, at least while we were there. And when you have a local do it for you, it was 1,028 Naira for $1. Now that's a difference of about 300, about 30%. That's a big difference when you're talking about exchanging $500 into Naira.
Yeah.
So what we ended up with is a big stack of money that it took us the entire time to spend it all while we were there, because of the global arbitrage that we were able to benefit from the currency exchange.
And you could kind of basically compare, like 1,000 Naira was $1 US dollar, like we were saying, but just in spending. So when you think about a bottle of water, we may spend 1,000 Naira for a bottle of water, and that comparison. How much was it?
A bottle of water was like $3.50. A beer was $4.50.
No, my bad. I wasn't doing the spending. So we'll say that again, right? So to put this into context, in order to buy a bottle of water, it was about 3,000 Naira or $3, right? And then you said what?
450.
You said a beer was $4.50.
Yeah.
I said a bottle of water.
Right. So a bottle of water would be like less.
You tell me the numbers.
I just did.
You said 3,000 for water, 4,500 for beer. That's what you said.
I didn't say 3,000. I said let's just do like
Roger, roll the tape back.
let's say Naira was 700. I mean, a bottle of water is 700, while beer was 450.
I said 1,000. You said no. Okay. Anyways,
a bottle of water was like 350. A beer was 450.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
Just to put things into perspective, we went in October and the temperature was about 85 degrees Fahrenheit with 100% humidity. So it was very hot and muggy. So you need water. A bottle of water costs about 700 Naira. 700 Naira equates to about 70 cents in US currency. A beer, on the other hand, costs about 450 Naira, about 45 cents. So that just gives you a little perspective on when we changed our $500 into the local currency of Naira, we had a pretty decent amount of money.
Yeah. And that's what we were talking about, the arbitrage. So going back to cash flow and thinking of passive income, what really resonated with us is seeing, again, the Nigerian American families living in Nigeria and being able to live the American dream in Nigeria, right? Because their homes are paid off, their cars are paid off, they have drivers, they have security, they have staff, they have everything that they could ever want, and they can do so because they're taking American dollars and spending them in Nigeria.
Right. So that's an example of financial freedom. There's nothing that they had to worry about, lift their finger to do anything, because they turned their US dollars into Naira. They have multiple houses, they have multiple cars, they have multiple drivers, they have multiple security. There's a lot of amenities that come with being able to benefit from the global arbitrage as an American or Nigerian American living in Nigeria. So they're able to, like you said, live the American dream in a another country.
To fast forward a little bit, these are the riches that we wanted to share with you. So going back to the mindset, talking about debt, and then also cash flow and how this all works. I want to spend a moment and share with you like the experience that we had with the wedding, because for me, it was one of the most culturally enriching things that I have ever done. And again, to celebrate our friends who were able to celebrate and have such a joyous day with their families. What was really transformative for me to see through this wedding was that the families, or the tribe, so to speak, were actually coming together and supporting one another. So in seeing, like, for example, that the women and the men for one particular ceremony, they separated the sexes, and the women had one ceremony and the men had another. And it was really about, how the tribes are going to come together and support each other. And that is
support the marriage.
Yeah. And that was huge, because like literally a member of the community, if something was happening between the marriage, like they would go find the groom and they would go make things right, or vice versa. Right. So if somebody was acting up, the entire community is on you, not just mom or dad or just your spouse, so it's all about supporting each other. And again, that abundant mindset in terms of like, how are we going to support each other so that we all can win?
I really enjoyed the wedding, but I also enjoyed the food. In the time that we spent there was about 3 cows that were purchased during this visit. It was a cow for the wedding. It was a cow for each village also. And a cow costs about 4 steak dinners. Between Carmen and I, if we go out and eat and we enjoy ourselves at a steak dinner, a steak restaurant is going to cost about $200. So it costs 4 steak dinners for 1 cow. Now, that was just the cost of food, or the cost of buying a cow, but the flavors that we were able to experience through the goat, through the different vegetables, there was so much flavor there outside of just the seasoning or spices that was added to it. It almost didn't need any of that stuff, because the foundation of it had so much flavor in it, to where I came back home, I thought it was a little bland, even with all the seasoning. If it didn't taste the same.
Yeah. And not only with the food, just everything was different, right? Because our cultures are completely different. And one thing that I definitely appreciated was having a driver, having security everywhere you go. It's not like we need that just to go to the grocery store, but we always had security everywhere we were. We'll put a picture of that on the screen. That one of the security guards was very fond of our daughter. So they had a nice little connection as he's holding his AK-47. But it was, again, going back to thinking about what the US dollar can provide when you are in Nigeria, and thinking again about who's poor. For someone who in Nigeria owns their car outright, they probably also have somebody to help them drive their car, and they probably are also walking around with security, meaning another person who is looking out for their well-being. So think about all of those costs that go into just being able to have a car, whereas when we think about the typical American lifestyle, is we are in debt to our cars and we don't have a driver or security because of whatever it is from our financial standpoint. So these were things that I really appreciated, and it reminded me about the time that we were living in the Dominican Republic, is being able to have a driver. We didn't really have security when we weren't around, but if we were to go back to the DR, our lifestyle would look much different than the lifestyle that we have here in the United States.
Right, and that just is the perspective of Americans living in another country, or the perspective of a Nigerian American who has establish themselves as Americans, but also have multiple homes in Nigeria, and they have a certain lifestyle that they're able to, again, live because of global arbitrage.
Yeah, and I think that's the cheat code to financial freedom, right? Is get as many American dollars as you possibly can and go live somewhere else. Somewhere else, meaning another country, because your money will just go so much further, and you can create literally the lifestyle that you want to have within the United States just somewhere else. And the food's better. Why not?
So the key to unlocking financial freedom is maybe to live in another country where you can benefit from global arbitrage, where you can be maybe an expat or a digital nomad.
And it sounds extreme, right? We're telling you to pack up everything and go move to a different country. But the idea is, so many of us can work online. We can literally just work from our keyboards anywhere. So it may be something to think about, especially as you think about retirement or whatever financial freedom looks for you. Start researching other countries and figuring out what is the lifestyle that you can live elsewhere, because that's something that we are always thinking about. We never know where we're going to end up. And it's just being open again to being able to spend our money differently. So we wanted to share this with you because maybe this is something you've never thought about. More and more Americans these days are jumping ship and going to other countries because they know that they can live a better lifestyle. Healthcare might be better in other countries. Benefits might be better in other countries. So start doing your research and see what's out there for you.
Right. And this is exactly why travel makes you richer, because it gives you a different perspective and a different appreciation about all the different cultures that make up the United States of America. We talked a lot about financial freedom in this video. So if you want a little more information on Personal Finance 101, check out our next video.
And don't forget to own your own lifestyle.
Or someone else will.